this episode, I want to talk to you about understanding when you want to farm and when you want to fight. Sometimes, on an individual level, you can think to yourself, okay, I want to farm, I want to get my blink. Or you can be like, okay, I want to farm, I want to get my BKB. But it's also important to understand how your lineup looks like and how it compares to the enemy team. In some games, you're going to have like a lineup that you can say like, we have late game, you know? That means like, okay, if we get to the end of the game and both teams have a lot of farm, that's good for us. But it's not usually that simple, and you should think of it like, or you should always like ask yourself in the game, like, okay, do we want to farm right now? And do like, I want to farm right now? If you look at our lineup, you can see that we have like a kind of greedy lineup where Wisp mid is farming jungle, we have Jug carry, and I'm playing Mag offlane. So if I know like, if the game, nothing happens for 20 minutes, we're going to be good, we're probably going to be out farming them, and we're really happy. That means like, okay, I know that we want to farm, I know that my team wants to farm. However, in order to make that happen, I know that if we all would just be farming, all 5 of us, just running around hitting creeps, be like, no, I don't want to fight anyone, I don't want to do anything, they would take our mid tower, they would take our top tower, they would probably take these 2 towers, they would probably walk into Roche, get an Aegis, and they'd like run around and kill us all the time, right? So it's not that simple that everybody can farm. So you need to understand as well, if your team wants to farm, like who on the team wants to farm. So when you're playing on the defense, usually as the offlaner, you're the one that has to defend towers, and you're the one that like has to set up moves. Just because you're on the defense and playing defensive doesn't always mean that you need to play passive. There's like a big difference between being on the defense and still being proactive versus being passive and only playing reactive. It's usually better to put pressure on the enemy. You know, there's like the old saying of being aggressive is like the best defense. And in this game, of course, it's very hard for me to put pressure as a Magnus. I can't really run around and like Shadow Blade solo kill people left and right, you know, I don't have the items for this. But the best way for me to pressure is to make sure that lanes that they want to push is always shoved out, so that it's harder for them to get to our towers. And then as well at the same time that lanes that we want to push, and if we want to fight, I want to be in position with my RP and my empower from my carry, so they can also make those things happen. Skipping ahead a little bit, you can see at this point, I finished my blink. My Juggernaut is, well, he hasn't finished his Manta, but my Wisp has finished pretty much his Orchid. I think it's flying out in his Courier. And we're getting like the levels and the items we need. Usually like around like 13 or 14, when your cores finish their first item, like a Manta or a Orchid, or maybe not a Battle Fury, but like a Sunny Yash or something, some type of item that lets them fight. You can like reevaluate and think like, okay, do we want to fight now? Or like, are we stronger than the enemy, or do we want to keep farming? Just because you have late game doesn't mean that you should only farm. It just means that, you know, once you reach that point, you're good. So let's say in a lineup where the enemy has like 5 pick-off heroes, maybe they're playing like some type of Storm Spirit, maybe they have like Zeus that gets a lot of vision, can like deward a lot of things. Maybe like you still have late game, but maybe you need to be playing aggressive in order to not lose map control and in order to not get ganked all the time. Maybe you need to group up and take towers. Like, it's not so simple to just think who's going to be stronger later. You need to understand like who's stronger right now all the time. So because that we have pulled ahead in gold and we managed to like successfully slow down the game and farm for like 5 minutes, no problem, and we've even gotten some kills while doing it, our team feels like, okay, we're stronger than the enemy right now. So we can instead group up and make some moves and like try and push towers. It's not always going to be that you quickly outfarm the enemy. Sometimes it can take a very long time. Usually it takes a very long time. But in some games, if you manage to like play really well, or maybe if the enemy team fucks up, even if we have late game, we still make sure that we use our timing and we play aggressive like as soon as we can. It's always better to like play to your strengths and make the first move, and to be the one like deciding the pace of the game. Maybe if we're sitting back and farming, they could like find some nice smoke ganks. Maybe they manage to like Chrono or Faceless Void and kill him on lanes. It would be like very unfortunate scenarios for us that we can avoid just by being the ones grouping up and playing aggressive instead. Here I'm gonna show you a competitive game we played a few days ago against Virtus Pro, where I'm actually playing position 4 in this game, just because Taiga, or Tommy, is more comfortable on Enigma than me, so we switched it around a little bit. Sometimes when you play your ranked pubs as well, it's gonna happen that you're forced to play other roles, but it's still important to like apply these concepts to all like roles of the game, not only like just because you're playing offlane you should think like this. Looking at our lineup, I'm like, okay, well, I think that we could win late game, you know. I think like it's not impossible for us. We have an Enigma. They don't really have a cancel. They have like Faceless Void, which has a Chrono, and they have Shadow Demon, which has a save. So it's not like very clear cut. I don't have this feeling of, okay, my Enigma is gonna get a blink BKB, will like win the game. But I also don't have the feeling, okay, we're like super stressed, we need to play like super fast, so we're gonna lose. However, we do have a lot of push in our lineup, and whenever you have a lot of push, you want to try and make use that to your advantage. So you want to try and get towers. Problem is, in a lot of ranked games, I think in lower MMRs, when people play really slow and people go to push a tower, the enemy team is always going to be ready with like 4 or 5 people. So in games when you feel like you can fight them, I think it's very easy. You just tell your team like, let's go 5, let's smoke down, push this tower. Obviously not 2 minutes into the game, but just in general, it's a very easy call to make. Like, let's just go, come with me, let's go. In a game like this, however, I think that probably they have more team fight than we do. At like 10 minutes into the game, I'll jump forward. Let's say we walk and push a tower, like even right now bottom. Faceless Void, like TP's in, Kronos us, they have like Phoenix Egg, Earth Spirit ultimate. Oh, he's a little bit under level, but a little bit further into the game. They have like Queen ultimate, they have a lot of damage and a lot of team fight tools. So you need to be a little bit smart about it. Even though we know like we want to fight them, we don't only want to be farming. The best way for us to reach like the point in the game where we're stronger than them is to outfarm the enemy. So what I mean by that is like the heroes that wants to farm, they want to farm like a lot. Like Lycan, every time he doesn't have ulti, he's just going to be farming, right? But I understand that me playing this Void Spirit, I'm like kind of a fast hero, a hero that can play aggressive. So I don't want to sit back and farm. I want to like make moves and play aggressive on the enemy, while my Enigma and my Lycan, they just kind of farm and push out lanes aggressively. To make it simple is like, we want to be running at them, we want to be putting pressure, but we don't necessarily want to fight like 5 versus 5 in a big ball. That's like the only scenario when their lineup is maybe stronger than ours. Best way to accomplish this is to get a lot of map control, to play for pickoffs, to understand like, okay, if they're playing grouped, we're going to outfarm them. To understand if they're playing split, we'll run around and kill them. And if they're not defending towers, we'll push the towers. And if they, let's say they defend this tower, we can just go and push another tower. When you're playing offlaners like Enigma in this scenario, or maybe you're playing Beast or Nature's Prophet or something, it's very easy for you to push any tower. You don't need to play around catapults that much. You don't need to play too much about timings. So if you think yourself, okay, like I know I want to push, but I don't want to fight, maybe we go and poke bottom. Maybe we go and like push in the lane. I see some heroes defending. I'll just walk over to mid. Maybe I'll TP top. Maybe I'll tell my team, let's smoke to the other side. Maybe we get a kill and we can start pushing there instead. Like our mindset is to play aggressive and to play fast, but not to fight 5v5. You need to think for yourself, at what point in the game are we stronger to fight 5v5? And at what point in the game can we like risk-free like smoke S5 like into their team or something like that. And for us, we felt like that was probably when we had the Aegis as well. So another thing to think about when it comes to like getting Roche is that if you can play aggressive in these areas around top and mid, and if we can take these towers, eventually you'll be able to take Roshan as well easier, and maybe then you decide like, okay, now we want to fight S5. You can look just on the way the map is set up that I think our Tiny is going some Echo Saber and we have Wisp, so these heroes deal a lot of damage together. Wherever these heroes move, the enemy team kind of has to run away. You see that our Lycan is just farming and we're running around killing people here. Whoever goes alone in their team, I can like jump in and Remnant and they will die. I'll finish my Yules and then we have like a lot of easy clear setup, so they always have to play together. But our heroes on our side of the map, we don't really have to play together because they can't really apply the same type of pressure. The Enigma can like push out lanes here. I can sit bottom pushing out lanes. If you see what's happening, like we're playing split and we're playing like spread out, but they're like playing grouped and they're playing very defensive. So slowly our gold lead is gonna increase, and at some point we're just gonna be able to like roll them over. Probably in a bit here. They get a little bit desperate because they know they need to force team fights. They know like, okay, we want to fight 5v5, so they instead choose to smoke on us, even though we're the ones that are winning and we're the ones that like supposed to play aggressive. Because they feel like they need to make space for themselves to farm. They do this like kind of YOLO move where they go top and die. And these things as well is like, you can understand if you're putting a lot of pressure on the enemy, if they're not farming, maybe they will have to do some moves on you. So you should also be ready for the enemy to try and fight you back in order to get space for themselves. I'll just show you the ending of this game. If you just watch the minimap and watch our heroes move, this is like the timing right now. If you see that, okay, now we feel like we're strong enough to fight them, and you can just view it like we probably just get the feeling like we just finished mech on our Wisp. We have like our Blink Enigma, we have Necro Free Lycan, like this guy has his Echo Saber finished. It's not like a super specific item timing that we're playing around. We just look at our heroes and we look at their heroes and we think like there's no way they can fight us. So we just decide to go into their triangle, take these 2 towers, we're black holding the queen. You know, Virtus Pro is like crying right now, we have full map control, we probably just take Roche and like end the game. There's not really that much for them to do, it's just over. So in like 10 minutes, we go from having a 2k gold lead to having like a 10k very reliably, strictly by farming, but like not team fighting. Like you fight and you farm, but you avoid team fighting. To break it down, if the enemy team has a lineup that's greedier than you, which means that not only that they can have better late game than you, but also that they farm faster than you. Maybe they have a Doom that buys some Midas, maybe they have an Orc Warden that has like a double clone Midas, maybe they have a Sven, Battle Fury Jug, whatever, and you don't have these tools. You want to make sure that you play fast and that you put aggression on the enemy. Sometimes you have the lineup that's a lot greedier, and you have the lineup that outfarms the enemy. That means that you as the offlaner, the role kind of falls on you to create space and to put pressure. And if you can't really make moves on the enemy because you don't have any follow-up, like your team is like in farm mode, then you know that maybe you need to be ready for fights, or you need to push out waves, or you need to like play aggressive and create space and make time for your team. So to understand like the different concepts is if your team wants to fight or if your team wants to farm, and then within that, like, do I want to fight or do I want to farm in order for our team to be able to win the game. Generally, 1 or 2 people in your team is going to be farming like all the time. They're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to farm and not really going to do anything else. In competitive games, the games are a little bit faster and it's like a little bit more pressure. But in ranked games, and especially in lower ranked games, more people can like get to farm because the game is slower. However, it's always tied to map control. If you have very little map control and you're like stuck in your triangle, that means that probably only your carry can farm. But if the enemy team is like you sitting in their triangle or sitting in their base, they're not really doing anything, well, technically your entire team could farm because there's enough camps and there's enough space on the map to do it. Of course, like you don't want maybe 5 people farming because they could smoke out and kill somebody, or they can like get out on the map. But you always want to think like, okay, if the enemy is playing defensive and I have a lot of space, well, I can farm. But if my carry and my mid laner also wants to farm, if they're pressured, you gotta think like, oh shit, I gotta like create space. I can't also be farming. As a general rule of thumb, as an offlaner, you never want to take defensive farm. You can be farming as long as it's like aggressive farm and it's on the enemy side of the map and you're not taking farm away from your other cores. A good indicator to know if you should be fighting or farming as well is to understand if your carry can like farm freely. If you can look at your carry or maybe even your mid, if they're both farming, if they're having like the time of their life, they're just running around farming, they're not getting pressured, they're never dying, never getting ganked, you can be like, oh cool, like I don't really need to do anything, I can just farm myself, I can be ready for the enemy to maybe go on me or my carry, and like my job is very simple. However, if you can notice on the map that it's like very scary everywhere, your carry is maybe getting ganked, maybe he's like flaming your team a little bit, maybe he's saying I have no space to farm, that's like a pretty clear indicator that maybe you need to be doing something to opening up the map and like making sure that your carry can farm. If you're farming and your carry is not farming, you're gonna have a pretty bad time. Of course, sometimes in like certain specific situations, like, yeah, you wanna 500 gold of your BKB or you're like 100 gold of Blink, that's like understandable, but you should also make sure to communicate these things with your team so that people don't like get pissed off at you for stealing their farm.